and today's webinar will be from Helena Romero Marin. So Helena Romero Marin is from and I hope I said this correctly, the Instituto de Horticultura Subtropical y Mediterránea from the La Mayora Research Institution, and her iPad webinar will be on DNA barcoding for pest detection in subtropical crops. So the expansion of subtropical crop cultivation in Mediterranean regions, like southern Spain, is reshaping agricultural landscapes and creating new opportunities for pest establishment. Introduced crops can act as entry points for non-native arthropods and alter the dynamics of native pest complexes, posing risks to biodiversity and agricultural productivity. Anticipating these risks requires sensitive tools to detect shifts in insect communities at an early stage. In this study, Helena and her team used Malaise traps and DNA barcoding to monitor insect macrocommunities in subtropical crops and adjacent native habitats. This molecular approach enabled broad community profiling and the detection of both potential pest species and natural enemies. Helena herself, so Helena Romero Marin, graduated in 2020 with a degree in biochemistry, specializing in molecular biology, and she later completed a master's degree in biotechnology. She's worked in plant improvement research, applying metabolomics to investigate how climate change influences food quality. Since 2023, Helena has been pursuing a PhD at the Experimental Station La Mayora, focusing on emerging pests affecting subtropical crops in Mediterranean agroecosystems. Current research at the Instituto de Horticultura Subtropical y Mediterránea, IHSM, integrates molecular tools such as DNA barcoding with ecological field studies to monitor arthropod communities and evaluate the potential risks posed by novel crop introductions. All right, Helena, take it away. Floor's all yours. You should be able to share now.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I will be sharing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for inviting me for this talk. Today, as Jessica has said before, I will be sharing with you some of our recent research using DNA barcoding for pest detection, especially in our case for in subtropical crops in Mediterranean agroecosystems. Also, as Jessica has said, this research has been developed at the experimental station of the Institute of Horticulture Subtropical and Mediterranean, which is in the south of Spain, in the province of Malaga. And the particularity it has different collections of subtropical crops as well as many other plant species, what made this location perfect for our research. So going on, as we all know, there exists globally an increasing demand for food, which is causing both an increase in the agricultural land use, and also it is causing switching native crops to new ones, like is the particular case in southern Spain, where native crops such as olives, as you can see in this image, are being replaced by subtropical crops, which are much more demanded and profitable. Although these crops, these subtropical crops have been cultivated in the area since early 20th century, it hasn't been since recent decades that it has expanded a lot. Thereby, these shifts not only transform the landscape and local economies, but also has important ecological implications affecting water use, soil management, and the local biodiversity. With this global demand for food, the switching of land use, there exists an increase on the trade of plant material, both in form of fruits and plants for planting. With this trade, new pests can be introduced, and also these new crops can become host of pests that are already present in the area. In both cases, a disruption in the ecological interactions can be produced. Highlighting the need for effective monitoring and management strategies for these pests and crops. In fact, this is the case of the European Commission, but these crops are regulated in by many other governments. For example, the European Commission considers the genus Annona and Persea, to which cherimoya and avocado belong, respectively, as high-risk plants due to their potential of hosting quarantine pests. In fact, despite these being considered as high-risk plants, there is little information on how these crops interact with insect species, particularly outside their native range. In a review we recently published regarding the genus Annona, to which the cherimoya belongs, we found that obviously most of the interaction that has been recorded belong to their native range, and there is little information on how they interact with insects outside its native range. This gap in knowledge limits our ability to predict potential pest outbreaks and to design effective management strategies for these emerging crops. This is what led us to this project, which is analysis of Phytophagous insect diversity associated with subtropical crops in production areas and phenotypic evaluation of germplant resistance to key pests, funded by the Spanish government, where we want to understand the interaction of these recently spread crops and apply this information for predicting potential pest outbreaks. For that, what we did was to deploy different malaise traps, which you can see in the image. And if you don't know how they work, the insect fly, get inside and trying to escape, they fall into a bottle that has a preservative on it. In our case, it was ethanol. And what we did was to put 3 of these traps on each orchard, having 3 orchards for each crop, mango and cherimoya. And they were deployed in the field from late winter until early summer. We collected the samples around every 2 weeks, and they were preserved for later DNA extraction. It is important to emphasize that the orchards are composed by up to 75 varieties of mango and 37 varieties of cherimoya, thereby a wide range of different traits depending on the variety are present in the field, and different levels of infestation will be seen also in the field. As I was saying, we had three traps for each orchard. What we did was to mix all the insects collected for each date and each orchard For the bigger insects, we cut a leg or two legs, depending on its size, in order to they don't look overrepresented when looking into the sequences. We extracted the DNA and sequenced the COI gene, the cytochrome C oxidase subunit 1, and then the obtained sequences were compared to different databases, BOLD, NCBI, and taxonomy was assigned depending of level of identity. With all the sequences, we found 728 different species, and we observed a substantial difference of species that were only present on the Cherimoya fields and species that were present on mango fields. So we already seeing differences between crops, and in our case, we have been able to assign most of the risks to a species and genus level, and at least at a family level. So this resolution allowed us to infer the functional roles of these arthropods in these ecosystems. Also to confirm the differences, there existed differences between the two crops. We use a non-metric multidimensional scaling using the Jacquard index, which measures the similarity between the two sets. And we can see a clear separation between the mango samples and the Cherimoya samples. This provides further evidence that each group supports distinct communities of arthropods, likely influenced by plant traits, the structure of the cultivars, or the microhabitat conditions. And also, as expected, as we used Malay traps, what we get mostly were flying insects, including Diptera, which was the order most commonly found, followed by Lepidoptera and Hymenoptera. So we have seen clear differences between the two crops, but we wanted to know if we could detect pests that were on the field and use this approach that doesn't require a high sampling effort, because you just let the traps there and you just have to go and see that they have ethanol on it, but doesn't require you to be on the field every day to detect these pests. Previously, we have observed on trees different pest species, including Theroplastis rusi, Pulvinaria acidi, and Neisseria seychellarum. These three were in the two crops, and we observed Audacaspis tubercularis, which is a pest of principally mango, and Parasizetia nigra on Cherimoya orchards. With the DNA barcoding approach, we did detect potential parasitoids of these pest species. For example, we detect Aphytis hispanicus, which could be a potential parasitoid for Audacaspis tubercularis on mango, or we detect different families that could be potential parasitoids for Parasizetia nigra on Cherimoya orchards. But we did not detect any of these pest species by this approach. using this approach. Uh, it was not due to that the sequences of these pests were not on the databases, because they were, but and also we have some mock samples where we analyze individually this pest, but probably due to the way the samples have been taken, maybe these pests are underrepresented on the samples, or maybe they are not at all on the samples, because as you may see, they are all coccyx that doesn't move for long distance, just short movements. And although males of these species have the capacity of flying, they are not frequently present on fields, and females reproduce by parthenogenesis. So maybe the issue is that they are not falling into the traps. Although in the Malays traps, not only flying insects fall, but also other that like ants or beetles that do not fly. In this case, that with insects that move for short distance, maybe is that they have not fall into the traps. So maybe an alternative trapping could be implemented uh, to uh, to get a better approach, and finally find these insects with these pests with the DNA metabarcoding approach. This would have been also the case of this insect, this pest that we found on Persea indica, which is an endemic species from the Macaronesian area, and we found them by visual examination of the trees. If we had relied only on the Malays traps and metabarcoding analysis, probably we will have not detected them, and yeah, we would have missed them. So maybe what we should do is to change, or not change, but apart from the Malays traps, include, for example, vegetation beating, which is more likely to that insects from or insect material from the trees are catch and later analyzed. And finally, to conclude, although we have seen that DNA metabarcoding is a powerful tool to explore the arthropod diversity on the field, because we have observed several species that we will have missed if we would have missed unless we were on the field with a high sampling effort, and we have observed, thanks to this approach, differences between crops, and we have now a way to start other researches with this information. It still has clear limitations, including, in our case, the sampling methods, that maybe they should be combined, because otherwise you could miss some species. Also, it is not probably a big deal in our case, but there is still a lack of reference sequences in databases, which we have observed in other experiments in areas where species are not sequenced at all. And to overcome these limitations, we see the need of a combined approach because while the DNA metabar coding provides broad insights into the community structure and ecological interactions, uh, probably target methods are still necessary for reliable pest monitoring until we overcome these limitations. Finally, I would like to thank all the team that has made this work possible. Eduardo for trusting in me for carrying this out. And of course, thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Helena. I'd certainly like to kick off the questions. Do you happen to know the impacts of those novel species that you recorded on Persea indica? So, for example, was there a particular economic loss that was attributable to them, or is it just that we have now found them on this species and we're not sure yet what that means economically in terms of agriculture?
Yeah, well, in fact, Persea indica is a wild species found in the Laurisilva forest. It is present in the Canary Islands, Madeira, and also the Azores as well. And as far as we know, this species has not jumped there into Persea indica. If they did, because they are already present in the area, it could mean losses in this native flora from this area. But this species is not, it's ornamental, and yeah, in our case, we just have two trees of this species. And also as they are not on their native range, they are not well adapted, and because we have such small trees, they tend to grow more on their native range. But yeah, in this climate change scenario we are, they could jump there. Yeah, they will. It is the second most important species of this forest, so it could imply significant losses of native flora. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I must have misunderstood. So it's exotic invasive pests that have now jumped onto a new host and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and in terms of the impacts of the host, have any of them died yet, or is it just a case of, well, we found them on here and now we need to keep monitoring to find out what the impacts on the native ecosystem are?
Yeah. Yeah. They have. They just present some leaf discoloration, but yeah, the trees are somehow okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone else? I did have another one, but I'm very happy to we've got Andy and Connor in case there are other questions. All right. Otherwise, I'll hop in with another one. You'd mentioned it's a late winter to early summer, so does that mean that that was the key growing season for mango and the other crop in Spain?
Yeah. Chirimoya fruit season is ends at late winter, And um, mango, in fact, it starts on, well, flowering season start spring, depends on the variety, spring, summer, and but um, fruits are already present early summer. It's true that um, fruit season goes from September until December, but due to it was when we could deploy the traps on the field.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. But you were able to include fruiting season for both crops over that
Mm-hmm.
time period. So I imagine that yes, you wouldn't have had any. Well, I suppose we don't know. We could always test. Are there any novel pests that are coming out in, say, late December? But I would imagine that everything is already caught by October, November. That is going to impact them significantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best approach would have been to have the traps all year round, but because it was not possible, we decided to keep into that date.
Yeah, no, obviously, if there are funding constraints, then
Mm-hmm.
that's always impact. Okay, so what's the most useful time period to get maximum information? I think that makes total sense if you're looking in terms of the food pest, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the eDNA, now I have only done a little bit of eDNA work, but from memory, there were times where you identified it to a species, but then the certainty that it was in fact that species seemed to vary a bit. Was that an issue at all in terms of your data that you think, well, it looks like it's this, but it might not be?
Yeah, we found several of these cases. In our case, what we did it is to eliminate all those species or not consider all those species that uh, have not been recorded previously in Spain, or at least that is difficult that this species has reached to this region. Yeah, maybe we are missing some introduced insects this way, but because of these uncertainties, we decided to not include those probably false positive.
How many, out of curiosity? Like, are we talking just a very small handful?
I don't know if it's small or not, but uh, many of them, but I don't know, uh,
No, that's all right.
50, 100. Yeah.
So then, whether that's a case of the eDNA not being 100% verified and verifiable, or whether it's a case of there's other things that have come in that have snuck through, but as far as saying, yep, they're absolutely here because the eDNA said so, it's a little bit awkward as your single source of verification. Yeah.
Yeah, and also between these that we have eliminated are also a species that uh, it is not possible to assign which one of them it is because the level of identity is the same for several ones. They are all present in the area, so we cannot uh, with any certainty say this is this species.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I remember that was one of the headaches of trying to
Mm-hmm.
eDNA.
Yeah.
All right. And are there any questions from anyone else? Otherwise, we might wrap this one up a bit early today. Andy, Connor, and Pablo. All right. Well, if not, Helena, you get an early mark, and thank you so much for presenting this. It was absolutely fascinating. And
Thank you.
for anyone who couldn't attend, I know that it was at a bit of an awkward time for our US and Canadian friends. We can then put it up onto YouTube so that everyone can see as at a time that suits them. All right. Thank you so much, Helena. Thank you, everyone
Thank
else.
you.
And enjoy the rest of your days from wherever you're signing in.
Thank you very much,
See you.
Elena.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.